the difference a year makes. Coming up next on the Journal.
From every point on the compass, from the woodlands and fields and waterways, come thrills and excitement and challenges enough for every man, woman, and child. These are our adventures, our stories of the wild places, both near and far. All of the hits, the misses, the memories. Our time spent living the wild life. Join us. Venture out into the world at the end of the asphalt. The world of the Wilderness Journal. The Journal is underwritten by
Algoma Country, Ontario, Canada. It's that scenic, that remote, that calm. 100-page travel guide available at fishalgoma.net. And by Heinz Propane, with locations in Mount Pleasant, Clare, Beaverton, and Harrison, Michigan. Heinz Propane provides residential and commercial services throughout the state. Heinz Propane, your hometown propane provider. And by the Ina Store in Tustin, Michigan. Ina Store features Case, IH, and a full line of Kubota tractors and RTVs, as well as parts, service, and accessories. The Ina Store in beautiful downtown Ina, Michigan. By Mads Outdoor Product, a full-line Avalon dealer. Mads also features Miracraft boat and Featherlight trailer, as well as combination boat, dock, and lift packages. Mads Outdoor Product, in the center of it all, Harrison and Cadillac, Michigan. Captioning provided by DP Tire Services Commercial and Retread Division.
Hi friends, and welcome. On today's adventure, I'm going to Colorado, where I'm going to try to finish a solo archery elk hunt. We're going out to see our good friends Pete and Judy, Paul and Colby, all the Sheltons out at Shelton Ranch Outfitters. And you frequent flyers might recall that last year I tried to do this hunt. Save something got in the way. Yeah, it was the day before opening day. We'd only been on the ranch for a couple of hours. I was actually practicing a little shooting when I looked up over the hill and I noticed some smoke. A fire had started by lightning on the neighboring ranch. And friends, when you're in the West and there's a fire, I sent Tina back to the ranch house to call it in, and I opened the gate and ran in there just to see was there anything I could do.
We stood there looking around, and then Pete noticed something.
Get that dozer and go do it. We're gonna try something.
There was a bulldozer sitting up on an adjacent ridge. We ran up there, fortunately found the keys in it. It was so smoky I went out in front of him. You couldn't see to drive 10-15 feet. We started cutting across there, and every time I looked over my shoulder, that fire was getting closer and closer.
Fortunately, the fire was contained. Nobody died, but I do have to tell you, it put a real damper on the elk hunting. But oh my friends, what a difference a year can make. Hey, I'm your host, Kyle Randall. This is my Wilderness Journal, and we're headed out for a do-it-yourself elk hunt right now.
It was elk, not fire, that we were watching on the night before opening day. Pete and Paul, Tina and I went up on the ridge and were watching out across the big hill, and there were elk coming up into the hayfields from just about every direction. There were bulls, cows, calves. There were elk everywhere.
Last night over there by the rock. It didn't take very much scouting to see just how much game, just how many elk had come back to the ranch. And after seeing all those elk up on the big hill, I didn't have any doubts where I wanted to be come tomorrow morning.
Long before daybreak, I started the climb, and by purple light, I was up on the edge of Granddad's field, and I could already see elk, and big elk. There was a huge bull out in the edge of the field, and he had a big harem with him. As I looked around, I could see that they were starting to work their way up the ridge. It looked like they'd cross up on the saddle, and unfortunately, that was a long ways past where I was set up.
Opening morning, archery elk hunt here at Shelton's Ranch. ranch. And believe it or not, there's too many elk. There was no way to get any closer. Still more going up. I don't know how many head elk that was, but it was a lot. And there was another bull in here this morning.
I watched as most of the elk that I could see moved up the ridge. I was far too exposed to try moving on them, and there were a couple actually working their way down the hill toward the field I was sitting on. And then I saw a few more elk starting to come over the hill. And then more. And then suddenly there were elk coming over the hill from just about every direction. A couple of satellites, and then a big herd bull popped over the ridge, and I was paying so much attention to them that I almost forgot the elk that were headed down toward me. It is so easy to get caught when you're out in the open and the sun is coming up and lighting you up. You have to truly be careful. Elk can see a lot further than people give them credit for. And it doesn't take much to convince them to run to the next county before they decide to stop and look back. I did my best to stay below the edge of the brush and not be detected by the two cows that were now feeding right in front of me. And at the same time, I was keeping an eye on that big bull up on the hill, who appeared, at least for the moment, to be pushing some of his herd in my direction. I picked up the glasses and looked. They were definitely easing their way toward me, and I thought, if they follow those first two cows down and work their way a little closer, friends, I don't mind telling you, I was starting to get excited. I've been doing this long enough to know that A, elk follow elk, and B, if these two cows kept working their way in closer to me and the rest of this big herd followed them down, there were so many elk up on that hill I couldn't hardly believe it.
Gotta be 100 elk.
I sat there, cautiously hopeful, just watching this big boy trying to separate his girls out of this big old mass of elk going every which way. And come my way or not, friends, this was the show. This is what I laid awake nights dreaming, hoping I'd hear. The screams of a bull. This is what you hope to see. There were a couple of bulls up there big enough to already have their own harem, their own herd, and they had mixed all together, and now the boys were trying to sort them back out. Friends, if this don't make your blood pump, you need to quick run to the doctor. And then one by one they started to turn, and it looked for all the world like they might just work their way down to me. And then they did. It was a full-on jailbreak elk-nado. Over 100 head of elk were running right down into the field in front of me. And just after that big boy turned his bunch down into the field, that other herd bull spun and started running his cows and calves right down on top of them. They were pouring down that hill. Friends, it was unbelievable. And then in one dust-swirling, stampeding mob, they all hit the field. Unfortunately, they were all out about 150 yards, and there was no way I could move off the edge of that field to get any closer. I'd just have to sit and see that some of them split up and come my way. And then some more did come. Into the field, not to me, unfortunately. My friends, there were so many elk out in front of me, I couldn't count them fast enough. There were at least 2 older herd bulls. A number of satellite bulls and countless cows and calves. With so many eyes and noses, there was no way to approach this group. There was no sense in trying to call one over. What bull would leave 50 real cows to go looking for a soundy herd?
There's no way to get over there. It's got to be 80 or 100 head elk. 5 or 6 bulls. They came down across there like a jailbreak. It's an elk stampede. If you've never been in one, you're cheating yourself. That's awesome. Missed it by about 100 yards. There's way too many to try calling. This just might be a good place to set up tonight.
I watched as the last of the herds worked their way up the mountain to bed, and then I worked my way down.
What a show! That many elk all in one place, and even though I couldn't get any closer, I just didn't dare risk sneaking down in on a herd that big. That's one of the problems with hunting that first hunt. Trying to get past 50 or 100 head of cows and calves just to get a crack at an ever-moving bull, well, it can be near impossible. Still, I had a pretty good idea where I wanted to set up for the afternoon, and if the wind held, well, then maybe.
I had a pretty good idea where I wanted to start that afternoon. That is, until I realized the wind had changed enough that I just couldn't sit there. So I decided I'd move down the field a little bit, and I started to do that until I ran right into a group of mule deer already out and feeding.
It's a bachelor group of bucks coming. They're headed pretty much right here.
And of course the deer worked their way across the field until they were literally right in front of me. I mean, not 6, 8, maybe 10 yards right in front of me.
$3, 10 yards. No deer tag.
I needed to get moving, and I knew where there was a deer stand up at the head of the field next to a stock tank, and no more did I crawl up in it, and a deer came walking out to get a drink. This place is truly amazing. You just never know what you're going to see. And not long after that deer left, it got pretty quiet, pretty warm, so I decided, I'll try just a couple elk calls, and I let out just 2 or 3, maybe 4. I looked over, and there was a lone cow elk working her way down the draw, no doubt looking for me, and when she couldn't find me, she stopped, eyed up that stock tank, and then walked over for a drink. And even though she was all alone, I was immediately thinking about elk rule number 2, the one that says elk follow elk, and then I heard another elk, and she heard it too. Then I heard a small bull squeal, and then I saw him. There was a small band coming for the water tank, and it looked like they had a young 5x5 pushing them down. I reached for my rangefinder. The tank was exactly 25 yards. And then I saw him come around the tree. A bull has to have at least 4 on one antler or a foot-long eye guard to be legal in this part of Colorado, and this bull was certainly a qualifier. And there he stood, 25 yards away, right in the middle of the tank. It was decision time in Colorado. I had a 5x5 bull elk on a do-it-yourself archery hunt that I was self-taping right in front of me at 25 yards. Yeah, I decided to wait. This was a nice young bull, but I'd seen a bunch of elk, and when he kept looking back, I thought for sure something else might be coming. And was there ever? The mountain opened up, the ground shook, and it rained elk. There were cows and calves and bulls from 2 to 200 yards. There was even a cow jumped in the stock tank. Everywhere I looked, there were elk. I didn't dare move. I was barely breathing. And then I heard him. And then I saw him. You could tell this was one of the big herd bulls. He was large and in charge, and now he was standing right there in front of me. He didn't really stop for water. He just worked his way around the tank, bugled once right in my face, and then walked out into the field and started rounding up his cows. And when he got the most of them turned and headed back up the draw, he turned and started heading back to the water tank. Every fiber of my body, every sinew was on fire. There was an absolute monster bull elk right there, right in front of me, and then
All right, quit screaming at your television. I hear you yelling, shoot. You're scaring the children. Calm down. There is a perfectly good reason I'm not taking a shot at that super bull standing right there in front of me. You see, just after that first 5x5 bull came down and just before that great bull made it to the water tank,
I heard and then saw one of the other herd bulls from this morning come running up the draw. A lot bigger and older than the first bull. I had a decision to make. And I made it. My shot angle was slightly blocked by that cow's head, but when she lifted her chin,
Neil, there you go. He's down. He's down right across. Giant bull coming.
Friends, I already had a monster bull down right in front of me.
That one's already down. There's a huge bull.
But as it turned out, the show wasn't over, not just yet. That bull worked around like you saw, and then he turned his herd and took him back up the draw. Friends, I don't know what else you could dream of.
Holy smokes, there had to be 100 elk. I shot that bull. He's a really nice bull. He ran right over there in the hillside, and he's down right there. I can see an antler in the grass. And then this huge bull comes running down here with him. I passed that first bull. He was pretty nice. This bull's real nice. And then a giant bull comes, stands at 24 yards. Shelton Ranch Outfitters. Opening day of the archery elk season. He ain't moving. We're going to give him a minute, but I can see him. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Man, oh man, look at that beast. Holy, let me set this down. Look at that, oh, that. Friends, that's a lot of elk. Man, I'll tell you what, Shelton Ranch Outfitters out here, I can't say thank you enough. I don't get it. Pete, Judy, Paul, Susan, Colby, everybody. Look at that. That is just an awesome bull. And the monster bull comes walking out 10 seconds after I shot this beast. I passed a nice bull, a satellite bull for this bull. It brought his herd down. And then it just opened the floodgates. Another monster bull. Can you believe this place? I'm sitting there 30 yards from, I don't know, 100 elk. Signed. We are in business. Now, don't you agree? That's a pretty good reason to pass up that shot at a big old bull, having an already super bull on the ground. Yep. Is that all right?
Well, that's all right.
As long as you're happy. That's the only reason I come here.
I know. Well, we're grateful.
Oh, I'm grateful. Thank you. Just throw that up on your shoulder there, Paul, and haul him down out of here, would you?
No problem.
I knew you could handle it. That's why I brung you. Now, how many baskets can you make with them handles?
Quite a few.
Yeah, one or two, huh?
It's gorgeous.
I was thrilled. And friends, if you think about it, hundreds of pounds of some of the best speed beef in the West, a great bull, and the completion of a do-it-yourself archery hunt that you videoed yourself, that's one of those things that I have wanted to do for years, and a story I'll take to my grave. That's what everybody that goes out archery elk hunting hopes will happen. And I have to tell you, the difference that year made, from the fire year to this year, the number of elk I saw, it was incredible. It doesn't always work out. Archery elk hunting can be tough. But I have to tell you, like anything else that's difficult, it's worth the effort, and it is so exciting when it comes together. Hey, I want to thank the Sheltons again, certainly my lovely bride Tina, everybody that helps me get this done and gives me the opportunity to do it. And I truly hope I see some of you out there trying to get her done. And if I do, friends, well, you got to know we're going to stop and help you drag out your big old bull and then share a cup and a fire. And if I don't see you out there, well, then I'll wait for you right back here so we can share another adventure from my wilderness journal.